Welcome back, everyone, to today's live session. I'm very excited for the conversation we are going to have today around how to let go of guilt. I know this is one of the emotions we all struggle with, don't we? That for small things or big things, we always carry this guilt in our hearts. Oh, I don't know why I did that. I shouldn't have done that. I feel so bad about it. Well, today, if you're ready to give me the next 10 to 15 minutes, you'll be able to understand exactly how absurd and foolish that is, and how you can actually break through and break free from it once and for all. Yes, it's that easy. If you're willing to learn the lesson today, if you're willing to truly be open and understand the perspective I'm about to share with you, you'll be able to let go of this debilitating guilt and truly live a life of freedom, of happiness, and of joy and innocence. So, I want to begin today by sharing a quick story with you. And this is a story that comes from the African savannas and from the jungles. And in this world, the animals, well, they can speak and they can communicate, and we can understand the language that they're speaking. So, I'm about to tell you a short incident that happened and the conversation that happened between a lioness and her young cub. So the lioness was teaching the cub how to hunt, how to find prey, how to find food in the jungle, how to have that sharp vision, that stamina, and all of that to actually go out there and hunt and survive and be a strong lion. So the young cub was going through the whole training, and for him, it felt very overwhelming because he was like, how do I keep track of all these factors? I know I need to hunt, I know I have that instinct in me, but this learning is a little too fast for me, and I don't know if I can do this. And internally, he's struggling with this fear. But he also knows he is born to be a lion after all. He can't stay in this fear for too long. So he does this, okay? He goes out on a hunt. His mom pushes him to do that. And when he goes out on the hunt, he starts chasing a deer. And now the deer knows this is a young cub. He's not going to be able to do anything. So the deer is in the calm stroll and he's seeing, okay, now the lion is coming closer and closer and closer. And when the lion comes dangerously close, the young cub is dangerously close to the deer just takes off. And the deer's like, okay, fine, whatever, I'm gonna handle it. And the deer just runs as fast as he can. And the young cub is sitting there, despondent, feeling sad, feeling as if he's let down his mom because he wasn't able to go out there and make the hunt. And he's so sad, and he's feeling so guilty, and he's feeling so bad about himself that he doesn't even have the courage to face his mother anymore. And he's just sitting there in that spot, all curled up, feeling very bad about himself. How could I be this bad person? How could I do this? How could I do that? How could I be this bad lion? I'm not even meant to be a lion. And he's sitting there and he's crying and he's feeling sad while not realizing that right in front of him multiple opportunities have just passed by of the hunting that he could do, of the food that he could find, but no, he's too busy feeling sad for himself, feeling bad, feeling despondent about everything that has just happened, hopeless and ashamed of how he's ever going to face his mother. And through all that, he just sits there for a day, for a few days, for a week, until the guilt literally eats him up alive. And in the harsh jungle, guilt doesn't survive. In the harsh jungle, feeling sad doesn't survive. Getting food is what helps you survive. But since he was so busy feeling guilty, unfortunately, he wasn't even able to do the one thing the guilt was supposed to make him do, and that was find the food. And the guilt ate him up alive and he passed away. Now I know that's a very sad story, isn't it? But here's something I want you to know from that story. It's not a far off metaphor from what guilt does to our lives. Most of the time, when we are guilty, when we are feeling sad for ourselves, when we're feeling bad for ourselves, Does it ever translate to action? It doesn't. It holds us back. It holds us in a challenging situation. It holds us in that negative space where actually nothing good is happening. And just like this fictional story of a young lion that I made up for you right now, so the point gets across, guilt becomes the very thing that eats up the very outcomes that we want, and then ends up with us feeling even more guilty and more guilty and more guilty. It's a vicious cycle that only takes us down. But you know what guilt does? It does serve a beautiful purpose. And the beautiful purpose is it allows us to be comfortable and justify that comfort to ourselves. I know, probably not something you want to hear, but it's true. Because there are two kinds of guilt, okay? And I'll break this down for you so you can understand exactly what kind of guilt is good and what kind of guilt is bad. So, first comes the category of necessary guilt. You've done a mistake, you've jumped a red signal, you've hurt somebody with your words, you've done something wrong, you've messed up at work, you've made a mistake, all of these things that happen in those moments, feeling guilty, feeling bad, feeling that, yes, I did something wrong, that's important. Why? Because necessary guilt leads to realization, it leads to repair, and it leads to growth. Any guilt that's not leading to that is not the guilt that you need. So, for example, let's say I'm doing this session over here. And while I'm doing this session, I'm not here in the present moment. I'm distracted. I'm thinking about something else. Something other than this session becomes a priority in my mind. Now, as long as I'm focused on that, can I show up in the best way for you all? I cannot. So, if let's say I get a comment, and let's say if I get a suggestion, hey, this wasn't a great session. You were kind of lost. We didn't really understand what you were saying. And if I feel bad about it, that's good. That's necessary because then it allows me to realize, it allows me to understand and to repair, and it allows me to grow further in your friendships and your relationships. Guilt is one of the most amazing things that could be there as long as it's helping you realize what you did wrong, it's helping you repair on those actions, and then it's leading to actual growth in the actions that you're showing up with. So, necessary guilt is good. Necessary guilt is amazing. And the quality of necessary guilt is the moment it serves its purpose of realization, repair, and growth, what it leads to is disappearance. Then you no longer feel guilty for that thing. Then you no longer feel, oh, this was so bad, this was so sad, I'm did this, I'm such a bad. No, then none of that happens because you know you've grown to be a better person. But then comes the second category, and this is the category that bothers all of us. I like to call that unnecessary guilt. It's guilt that's not pushing you to action. It is guilt that's not changing anything. It is just you feeling bad. Now, for a lot of people, this is actually very comfortable and a great escape. Because think about it, if they're too busy feeling bad, they don't have to take the action that will actually lead them to growth. Interesting, right? I want you to reflect. The last time you felt too bad about something, you felt unnecessarily guilty, you said, I'm so sorry, I don't do this, I'm not going to do that. You actually ended up repeating the action because the guilt was a way to get out of the discomfort that growth, repair, and realization will bring. And when we're always stuck in the cycle of unnecessary guilt, right, the problem that happens is we end up dismantling the trust we have with ourselves and with others. And you don't want that to happen because when that happens, oh, then doing even basic things becomes harder and more challenging. So if you're somebody who knows you're struggling with this unnecessary guilt and you use it to avoid action, first of all, congratulations on realizing the mirror. And to help you realize this mirror even better, I want you to think of a relationship or a friendship or a connection that you're fed up with, that actually broke your heart, that made you feel sad, that actually just ended up frustrating you quite a bit. That what even is this? And in that relationship, probably the biggest reason for confusion was the other person was incredibly masterful at feeling guilty. They would apologize a lot. They'd say, sorry, I'm so sorry I did this. I didn't even realize we're doing this. And they'd have a whole list of things that are justifications for why they made a mistake. But then I realized this is all just an excuse, and I'll work on this and I'll improve on this. I'm sure you've heard these dialogues before, haven't you? Then, the more a person apologizes, do they actually improve or do they go back to their old behaviors? I think I don't need to tell you that. You know it. But in the other hand, when you have experiences in clear, respectful, assertive relationships, you'll notice guilt isn't there. Reconnection, realization, repair, and growth. All of this, that definitely is. So that's why this person is never unnecessarily guilty. They don't say sorry for random things. They don't say that, hey, I'm never going to do this again and stuff like that. No, they realize they can be make mistakes. They realize they're human, but they don't feel unnecessary guilt for any of that because they are willing to put in the work to actually improve themselves. So you know this from your relationships experience. So this mirror is probably helpful, that if you're the one who's used to feeling guilty, you might just be running away from actions that can actually help you grow. Because take the Lion Cup, for example, right? All he had to do was be done and dusted with the fact that, okay, I didn't catch one deer. So what? Let me go and run behind another one. He was always fearful. He never wanted to hunt in the first place. He never wanted to take those actions. And so what happened is he ended up struggling even more. He ended up eventually using the guilt as a way to run away from the action of hunting, but that only sabotaged his life and his growth. So if you're somebody who's doing that, realization is great, that the guilt is not serving you in any way whatsoever. It's only sabotaging your growth for the sake of today's short term comfort. And you know that's an equation that never works. You know that's an equation that never really helps you grow, succeed, and make the magic happen. So if you're somebody who's holding back, if you're somebody who's used to feeling guilty, realize this. It's just your habit of running away from action. Be comfortable with it. Be comfortable with facing the fact that you need to grow, and watch how quickly and easily innocence just seeps back into your life. Remember, necessary guilt is good, it's important. Unnecessary guilt, it's not. And if you're finding yourself stuck in unnecessary guilt again and again and again and again and again, be willing to hold an honest mirror in front of you and ask yourself, where am I avoiding action and using guilt as a justification for avoiding that action because I'm feeling too bad and I'm feeling too sad? That's a substitute for the action I know I need to take. Be brutally honest with yourself, and you'll find out guilt is no longer something that bothers you because you know what you're prioritizing and you're okay with the consequences of those decisions. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope the session helped you realize more things. I hope it helped you see exactly where you might be going wrong. And I'll see you once again tomorrow at the same time, that is 8:30 p.m. IST. Bye. Talk to you soon.